would you want to study that? My seemingly clueless father asked. I had just explained that my doctoral dissertation focused on the kinds of families therapists grew up in, and whether growing up in a dysfunctional family influenced their choice of profession and the work itself. My mother said rather calmly, but pointedly, well, she had a mother who was a nut for one thing. I was immediately transported back to the time when I was 5 years old. My mother was standing in the bushes in the front of the house and she was yelling at my aunts. She was angry, and I knew the words she was using were bad words. I knew instantly she was in trouble. Sure enough, a few days later, while my brother's sister and I were taken to see Sally Starr, a cowgirl who showed cartoons on a local television station, my mother was hauled off to the state psychiatric hospital. Little did I know that this would be the start of a lifetime of trying to understand why people do what they do, always choosing my words carefully, paying attention to the signs of danger, and wanting to make people feel understood. 50 years later, as I walked into the conference room at Delaware Hospice to explain borderline personality disorder, a woman rushed up to me and said, "Now I understand what my sister has." I hadn't even given the talk yet, but my press release captured enough of this disorder to turn a light bulb on for her. Hi, I'm Dr. Judy Pearson. I'm a licensed psychologist in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Like most people, my greatest strengths are tightly interwoven with my deepest wounds and ongoing liabilities. The journey I took to understand others, fortunately, required me to dive deep and get to truly know myself. This journey was essential as my formal clinical training in becoming a psychologist. I often understand what my clients are sharing from the inside out. I just haven't read a book about it. I've lived it. Sitting with others and taking that elevator down to hell of their most subterranean wounds gave me an understanding of just how much pain people carry with them through life. I also came to marvel at how their most embarrassing habit or troubling symptom both hid and hinted at the path to their recovery. It was the part of them that refused to lie about the fact that they still hurt inside. It was a part of them they often detested, but it was also a part of them that was fighting for their well-being by yelling as loudly as possible. Rumi once wrote, "That which haunts us will always find a way out. The wound will not heal unless given witness. The shadow that follows us is the way in." I've come to understand that the behaviors people sought to flee were the very things they needed to run toward. Too many had sought quick fixes, which offered at best a soon frayed band-aid. When their efforts failed, they felt even worse about themselves, which usually only exacerbated the original problem. I came to understand that an approach to healing that recognized the complexity, the depth, and the hidden genius of the human psyche was the only path to lasting change. I also understood that, like my mother, many in pain would be reluctant to seek help and risk being labeled crazy. Ironically, the more I understood about seemingly crazy behaviors, the more I understood how, traced to their roots, they made sense. A desire to build a bridge between those who might never enter a therapist's office and a bridge between those who were hurting and those who wanted to help them led to my passion for providing psychoeducational programs. The proposed book draws on some of my best efforts in those areas. I know people yearn to know more about the topics that are in this book because I've heard them raised by my individual psychotherapy clients, the caregivers in my group that I facilitate, and my audience at Delaware Hospice, and a variety of other speaking settings that I've been at. I've been offering a monthly self-help presentation to a lay public in central Delaware for about 13 years. It is actually at the urging of many of these participants and my employer, Delaware Hospice, that I am proposing a book based on the extensive and well-researched handouts that were distributed at every talk. My audience grew rapidly from a small audience of those who lost someone in the hospital to a broad audience that was too big to fit into our conference room, which held 60 people. One afternoon, I was promoting a talk on a radio station. I was discussing how childhood experiences shape adult beliefs. I gave as an example someone being told as a child by their father, "You're stupid." Explained every time this now adult feels they've done something stupid, they will reinforce that message and they're likely to experience intense feelings of shame. I said the neurons that fire together wire together in the brain. I no sooner got off the radio when a breathless man came running in the door. He said, "I'm so glad you're still here. I've been racing to meet you." He had been listening to me on the car radio. "I'm a retired Philadelphia police officer. Had a very successful career. I moved steadily up in the ranks. But to this day, I believe that I am stupid because my father told me I was." This tough-looking man, who I had no doubt faced many more frightening and complex situations than the average human being, was still this little boy who believed he was stupid. Time and again, people have said to me, "I wish I had known this earlier in life." Many people tell me that the depths of my talks makes it feel like they're eating a very rich meal. I like to think I specialize in breaking down complex concepts that honor the intricacy of the human psyche into relatable and clear information that normalizes and guides and empowers people. I also like to weave in some humor, some self-disclosure, and stories that bring that material to life. Expanding my reach in efforts to help others is really the primary reason for undertaking this venture, creating this book. One person suggested I should call the book, "You'd Be Crazy Not to Buy This Book." According to the COVID response tracking study, people in the US are more unhappy today than they've been in nearly 50 years. Furthermore, since the pandemic began, the demand for psychological services has surged, and many are being forced onto waiting lists because there simply aren't enough practitioners to keep up with the demand. The New York Times reported, and I quote, "Since the first coronavirus case was confirmed in the United States more than a year ago, the number of people in need of mental health services has surged, but many say they are languishing on waiting lists, making call after call only to be turned away, with affordable options tough to find. Providers who've been in short supply are stretched thin." This book looks to sort of fill that void by answering readers' questions about finding and maintaining their emotional well-being, understanding and dealing with other people, and creating a well-grounded and rewarding life for themselves. It is unique in that it presents accessible information and concrete suggestions that are also grounded in a more in-depth understanding of the human psyche and current scientific research. Too many self-help books fail to grasp how deeply rooted problematic behaviors really are. And as many who devour these books know, surface level quick fixes rarely lead to lasting change. Unearthing the origins of seemingly self-defeating behaviors requires understanding the purpose they served when they were adopted and dealing with the emotions that flare up when you attempt to discard them. Understanding others and creating a meaningful life also demand a more nuanced and research-based grounding. Each chapter reflects the latest thinking in psychology. This includes research-based evidence of the unconscious mind, new understandings of the impact of abuse and trauma on the brain and the body, and how to harness the brain's physiology to make lasting changes. Most of us got little guidance on facing life's challenges. We're forced to muddle along, coping the best we can with things like loss and feelings of shame and trauma, problematic family dynamics, a harsh inner critic, loneliness, and the emotional legacy of childhood experiences. We're also alone when trying to understand and deal with difficult people. And yet, there's much that can be learned from those who provide guidance to people on a daily basis. While other psychology books have focused on just one topic, this book covers a range of concerns that are common to many. It is a handbook filled with wisdom for moving beyond painful personal experiences, coping with difficult people, and proactively shaping a fulfilling life. The pandemic, in a positive way, has forced people to pause and think about what really matters to them. They're looking for advice on coping with stress, moving forward, and understanding what has been holding them back. Difficulties with others and knowing how to form meaningful connections has been brought into sharper focus because of the isolation we faced during the pandemic. The general public has probably never been more ripe or more eager to look below the surface of their lives. With therapists in short supply, a handbook written by a seasoned psychologist on facing life's challenges couldn't be more timely. I hope you agree, and I thank you in advance for taking the time to review my materials.